Well, no, but
you
is
got
it
to
knock on his door and say, "Hey, Nick, this philosophy worked last year, but we might want to get ahead of what it looks like this year." Through 4 weeks, the defense isn't number one. The offense can't run the ball as successfully. I don't know if our setup this year will give us the same type of success it gave us last year. Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, John McMullen. Working our way into another week here. The Eagles are sitting at 4-0 as we continue to roll on with the Denver Broncos coming up in Week 5. They played last night, got the win over the Bengals. Johnny Mack, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, brother?
Doing well. Never a dull moment with this team. I can say that.
Yeah, no doubt
Never
about
a
it.
dull moment.
No, never a dull moment. No doubt. You heard Nick spoke yesterday. A lot of obviously conversation, John, still swirling about the AJ Brown stuff, which we knew was going to happen, which is part of the reason some people were upset with him because they knew this was going to dominate a lot of the
Well, and
headlines.
AJ should have known it.
Well, I think he to be fair to him, I think he did know it, and part of me thinks it was intentional.
It is intentional. It's
Exactly.
very media savvy, AJ.
Yes,
very
he
media savvy.
Well, what do you make of it? I mean, Jeff McLean has now tweeted out it was about somebody in the organization. I hear that, and I'm like, okay, it's one of three people. It's Jalen, it's Nick, or it's Petula. I happen to think it's Nick.
Well, no, Jeff's great. Don't get me wrong, but like, did anyone not think it was somebody in the organization? Like,
Right.
I mean, what? But anyway.
Well, I mean, I guess somebody could take it and just say AJ's just ranting on Twitter, but the way Jeff worded it was like it was specifically about somebody where I guess maybe some people could have assumed it wasn't like that, and it was like that. Do you have any speculation on it?
I don't know who that person is, but if they did, I obviously he's talking about somebody in the organization, but yeah, I mean, look, I think there's two ways to do it. I think there's two issues here, and it could sort of. I heard somebody say executives yesterday. What executives would have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, so, and I don't want to frame it as player or coach or vice versa, and all I can do, I don't know what he said, who he's referencing 100%. All I can lean on is my long history covering AJ, being in the locker room every day, talking to him on and off the record. My thought, my speculation, my framework is it's about neither specifically player or coach. It's about being risk averse. So, you can point those tentacles in both directions. I say it all the time. The ball does not come out on time too often for the Philadelphia Eagles. If you want to take that as he's blaming Jalen Hurts, feel free. That's up to you to run with the football any way you want to run with the football. If you want to talk about it's the coaching staff beating it into Jalen Hurts' head for 2 years, run with that any way you want to. But I don't think it's coach player specific. I think it's philosophy specific in that they are too risk averse. Now, again, you can blame that on the quarterback. You can blame that on the coaching staff, and that's where it gets murky. But I think it's philosophy. And AJ's got, shaky ground to stand on. And I love the guy because all they do is win football games with this philosophy. But, if you go back to his thoughts on the Super Bowl, if you remember, he was like, he didn't have the feeling he thought he had of accomplishment.
Yes.
He thought, and I'm paraphrasing, he was happy and and then it was over and he wanted to get back to work. And he said, what makes him is he wants to dominate. He wants to sort of crush the will of the player playing opposite of him. That's what drives him. And I think he's starting to think, and he mentioned this offseason about being the best receiver in football. He wants to be regarded as the best receiver in football. Well, guess what? If you catch 2 passes per 7 yards, you ain't going to be considered the best receiver in football. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you're not.
Right.
I think he's thinking about his status in the game, and everybody, and I'm an all pro voter, and everybody knows how good AJ Brown is. He's been second team all pro 3 consecutive years in a run heavy offense. That tells you how good he is. But to get in that Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson thought process, you at some point you got to put up some numbers, which is generally taking care of itself. It is not taking care of itself this year, at least yet. And we're getting still a small sample size, but we're getting larger, and it's not taking care of itself. And then I think, ultimately it's about that gold jacket. It's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He wants to be a Hall of Fame player. So I think a lot of it's about legacy. And again, if you're catching nobody in Denver, I'll pick Denver since they're coming in this week. Nobody in Denver is looking at the context of why AJ Brown has 2 receptions for 7 yards. They're just going, shitty game for AJ Brown.
Right.
And by the way, to be fair to Jalen, I think it was a shitty game for AJ Brown. He wasn't getting open. He wasn't getting separation. I think the Eagles receivers I think Tampa Bay did a really good job in that game. Rewatching.
Didn't it kind of look like AJ was I don't want to say he was half-assing his routes, but when a receiver knows they're not running a route that's going to create separation or get them open in a certain defense, it almost looked like he predetermined that on some of his routes. I don't know. I can't.
I went through Randy Moss. And there were people who would, he runs a go route, and he comes back and he doesn't get the football, and he comes back 50 yards, and then he's not going to get the football on the next play, and he just, walk out 3 steps and do a little pretend block. And I'm like, to me, that was the first time people recognize the obvious because he was so good. Like, it happens all the time. Like, if you're on the other side and it's going the other way, yeah, you're gonna do some different things. You're not gonna go full bore all times. I mean, that's everybody. That's every receiver who ever lived. But yeah, I didn't notice any of that. I just didn't think he got a lot of separation, which is rare. But sometimes you have to tip your cap to the other team. We're talking about Benjamin Morrison. That kid played a hell of a game.
He did. And John, you were on him pre-draft process, man. You've always said that kid was going to be a good player.
Yeah, you never know the health stuff, but
right.
He definitely would have been a first-round pick if he didn't have that injury. And I thought he played a big-time game. And I thought, McMullen, who hasn't been playing as well as he had in the past, played a good game, especially in the second half. And look, they did a good job, looking at it again, they did a lot of simulated pressure in the second half. So they ran a lot of pressure in the first half and it didn't work. And then they ran simulated pressure and it seemed to be like Jalen thought it was coming. Then they backed off and all of a sudden, he didn't have the answers for it. So I thought Todd Bowles deserves credit for making those adjustments as well. But yeah, I think it's the risk-averse nature of this offense. It's not even about. It's about when the rare opportunities, because like I said, he is uniquely, and I've talked about this a lot with him over the years. He is uniquely wired to be in a run-first offense from playing with Derrick Henry and now Saquon Barkley. Like, very few people accept that. He accepts that. But when the ball is supposed to come his way and he's open and they're not pulling the trigger, I think that's what frustrates him the most.
Right. He knows he's getting limited opportunities already. And when that ball is supposed to be there and he knows he should be there, that's when I think you're right. That makes sense. But it's a confluence of things, it sounds like, more than you think more of.
It always is. Then that's the whole point. I can't stand when people try to boil it. Well, he's mad at Jalen. He's mad at Nick. He's mad at Kevin Petullo. And by the way,
well, I mean, to be fair, John McLean's report made it seem like it was that, so people take that and they wrote, well, and you're right. It's like, it's obvious, but people put that out there and then people run with it,
I know. And then the aggregators get it.
It's got to be one person,
And the aggregators get it and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's somebody with the team, for many years he's been, very good friends with Jalen Hurts. I don't, I don't think they're as close, but I think that has to do more with, Jalen's married now. AJ's gotten, I think he got married. Yeah, yeah, or was that an engagement party? I can't keep it straight, but I think he got married. He's had kids for years. That happens in everybody's real life. You get a family, you got your buddies, and you get a family, and you have kids, and you're like, you have no time, and it's like,
Right.
I love you, dude, but I got to do this, I got to do
Right,
this, I got to do this. So I don't think that's that big of a deal. Dude loves KP, so everybody wants to shit on KP. He loves him. I'm pretty sure it ain't about him. And he loves Nick as well, but I do think it's about the risk-averse nature
Yeah,
and
and that's where I
how
think it's about Nick. I don't think he hates Nick. I just think
no,
that he knows that Nick has the conservative approach, and that's probably where the problem lies, and to some extent.
I think so. But I'm not reporting that. That's my speculation.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, it has something to do with somebody in the organization. I just don't think it's that linear, if that makes sense.
No, I do. I that makes sense. I think that's what most conversations are in football, John. Here we've discovered that many times on Birds 365. It's always a confluence of things. But look, we'll see we'll see. Nick had some comments on it yesterday. He was asked whether he thought, AJ wanted to be here, and some of those questions. I didn't think that was necessary, but some people did ask it. What were your thoughts on what Nick Sirianni had to say yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, he said, I mean, you know how Nick was going to handle it, and he handled it as he did. He was asked about the conversation, which was, what he always says: "I'm going to keep that private." And he did what all he could do, and that's be understanding, and that obviously AJ's frustrated. I think Devontae's frustrated. He just doesn't put Bible quotes on social media. I think people look at that and they go, "Oh, Devontae's fine." I don't think he's fine either. He's just, he keeps things internal. Any great receiver is not fine with this. 152, 101, 130, and the high point is 226 against the Rams. I mean, that sucks.
Yeah, sucks.
And you have two of the best receivers in football, and a good tight end, and a running back who can get in space. And sometimes he bobbles it and whatever, but if he gets in space, it's absurd.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I think it doesn't have to be this way. Now, John, real quick, let's kind of advance the conversation to the next level. I think a lot of people have been infatuated by the AJ Brown tweet, and it's like, all right, that's the tweet. We can analyze what AJ said, but how about what AJ's talking about? And that's where the offense lies. And it's like, do you think AJ's right? Because I'll say this. They're 4-0 and they're 20 of the last 21. I get it. It's a beautiful record. It's honestly incredible. It's almost unheard of in the NFL. Last year, 17 out of the 21 games in that record, they had a number one defense. They had a historic running season, and that in many cases allowed them to, when they were sporadic in the passing game, when they were inconsistent in the passing game, they had the tools in the shed to make up for those. Now this year, through 4 games, you haven't seen a good running game. The defense has been good. I think we can all agree they've been good, but they haven't been what they were last year. They're not historic. So is AJ right? I mean, when you lessen the running game and lessen what your defense is able to do, it's going to make things a little bit harder if you can't pass the ball successfully. That's where a part of me is like, I know we're 21.
And real quick, before you don't forget the special teams. The special teams on this team has been insane early in the season. Yeah. And they're helping win these games as well. So yeah, from the offensive perspective, they've been not good. Except for basically 4 quarters. So 25% of the time. And 75% of the time they've been awful. Let's be honest. Not even mediocre, awful. That's what it boils down to. But is he right? I think he's right. Here's where
problem with no, I think he's right.
Look, but and again, I think Nick would, and as he should, will point to the scoreboard and say, "Hey, 21." Now he's not going to spike the football, but that's what he
But don't you
means.
think there's a little bit of a problem with that mentality based on what we've talked
Well, here's my problem with that mentality, because they're so risk averse, and he believes in that, and that's fine. And the unknown is the unknown for a reason. You can't prove it. I can't prove this, but maybe if you open it up with the talent you have, like maybe you throw an interception and you give them a short field and they score a touchdown. But I go back to the greatest show on turf mentality. Okay, we're going to stay aggressive and we're going to score 3 touchdowns because we are aggressive. And you end up with a bigger win than you would have had if you didn't turn it over once. If that, that's where I am. Now, that's all in our minds, including mine, and that's our projections and that's our perceptions of this offense, of what this offense could be. Maybe we're wrong. I brought that up. Maybe we give this offense too much credit that they don't deserve, to be honest.
I don't know about that. I mean,
why do they deserve it?
Well, they deserve it from a perspective of forget the production and forget what they've shown us. They're the highest paid offense in all of football.
Okay,
by a long shot.
So because Howie Roseman pays them, they deserve it.
No, that's not the point. Devontae Smith is one of the highest paid receivers. AJ Brown is a top 5 paid receiver.
I don't care about what they make. I'm saying what they've done on the field.
Because of what they make, I'm saying only players that are that good earn those size contracts. So if
Bryce Huff earned a big time contract. He fucked that up. And I'm not comparing because I think they're all good players. But I'm trying to point out that's where the perception comes from because of the reputation or the perceived reputation.
Well, am I wrong to think that AJ and Devontae and Goddard and Jalen and this team and Saquon and this team, should have a better offense? That's where I think the perception comes.
I think they should have a better offense. Nobody's arguing that. But what I'm saying is historic offense, number 1 offense, top 5 offense. Forget about historic. They don't deserve any of that. Let's say top 5 offense. I think that's percept. They should have a top 5, but they should have a top 5. Well, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should be 8. Maybe they should be 8. And this year, because the offensive line is taking a dip, Saquon's taking a dip, AJ's taking a dip for whatever reason, maybe they shouldn't be 8th. Does anybody think of that? Because people keep bringing up, was AJ healthy? Is AJ healthy? Tells me he's completely healthy. I take him at his word. He's been honest to me. He's never lied to me. So he says he's healthy. Well, he's not getting open against Benjamin Morrison. Typically he would. He's not getting open against Zion McMullen. Typically he would. Jamel Dean early in the game. Saquon, 3.1 yards per carry. All right. Now, I guess if you want to blame it all on the offensive line, you can make excuses for everybody with the offensive line. Contextually, I've made excuses for them. Well, they're still the best offensive line in this shitty league, but they're not nearly as good as they were last year. We can all agree with that.
Which is where, again, I think AJ is going to be right, because you don't have the same variables that you had last year. Which means,
but the variables have changed. Like the defense is still good. Yes, it's not number 1, but they're making plays when they need to make plays. And then the special teams has popped up. Block field goal, walk-off field goal, block punt, touchdown. There's 7 points. That's absurd. They were the first team, I think, in the Super Bowl era to end 3 consecutive drives with blocks. They blocked field goal. They didn't score a touchdown. Block field goal again. They scored a touchdown. Block punt. They scored That's freaking absurd.
Michael Clay, man, he needs a raise. Michael Clay. Speaking of contracts, Michael Clay's
he got an extension a year ago, so he's good. But Yeah, I mean, but the offense specifically, the defense, no issues. Special teams, obviously, no issues. The offense, 75% of the time, they stink. And they're the guys getting paid, to your point. That's who they're paying.
Right.
Defenders are all on rookie deals, falling out. These guys are making top of the line money. And in that second half, they couldn't complete a pass. Think about that. What did Bo Nix? Bo Nix was, I told her, what did he throw for last night?
I don't know.
Right.
Did you? I was going to ask if you watched that game because we're playing them next week. I watched some of it.
I watched part of it, but I knew Cincinnati is,
He threw for 326, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick.
I mean, it shouldn't be this hard. And it's hard because they make it hard with their philosophy. But, it's hard to go on Nick. It's hard to knock on Nick Sirianni's door and say, hey, your philosophy sucks, dude. Like
Well, no, but it's to knock on his door and say, hey, Nick, this philosophy worked last year, but we might want to get ahead of, what it looks like this year. Through 4 weeks, the defense isn't number one. The offense can't run the ball as successfully. I don't know if our setup this year will give us the same type of success it gave us last year. And just like 2-2 didn't mean shit for us through 4 weeks last year, the 4-0 might not mean like that much through the first 4 weeks this year. 2-2, 4-0.
Oh boy, I mean, if I'm Nick Sirianni, if I'm putting myself in, I'm pretty comfortable with this because again, you went through the ringer here in the first 4 weeks, and the ringer's easing up a little bit. Yeah. Now he doesn't like to think that way, but he's human.
I know, but that is a reality. We played 3. Yeah. We played the Chiefs, the Rams, and the Bucs. 3 teams that are most likely going to be playoff teams.
Yeah. And now you see what's coming up. Not only, the Broncos look good yesterday, but they, again, Cincinnati's dead in the water with no Joe Burrow. They can't do anything offensively. Now you're putting a backup quarterback behind one of the worst offensive lines ever. So they can't do anything. I think they've scored 3 points in 2 consecutive games.
I think it shows you how impressive Joe Burrow is.
And then,
last week, they had 10 last week.
10, sorry.
Yeah, they picked up a late fourth quarter touchdown.
I insulted the Cincinnati. I apologize to Bengals fans, but yeah, they've been brutal ever since Joe. And that's sort of like, but what they lose the week prior was like 40-something to 10, right?
48-10, yep.
48. Now, Isaiah Rodgers, that was the Isaiah Rodgers game, so there were a couple defensive touchdowns. But you get to the point of, as a defender, when you're playing on a team like that and your offense can't do anything, and you're like, oh, my God. And it just starts to manifest itself. And that's how Denver had 512 yards yesterday, and Bo Nix had 326 yards passing. You ain't going to do that against Vic Fangio. I'm comfortable in saying that, but you have these games all over the place, and the Eagles don't really have these games. Even the games that people think they're throwing it all over the lot, and you look at the end of the day, and it's 220.
Well, because they only do it for a half, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but even in the NFC Championship game, they score 40, whatever. I think the number was 240.
They scored. I think it was 55, right? 55-23.
Yeah, and I think the number was. I'll look it up.
Yeah, well, you're right. I don't think it was more than 250. I think you're right about that. Super Bowl might have been the same.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Even when you think they're doing it, they're not doing it. It looks good, but they're not doing it. It's really bizarre. I've said that. I mean, that's my analysis. It's fucking bizarre. You shouldn't be able to win this way.
So you think AJ's? Well, I don't want to speak for you. So do you think AJ's right, or do you think if you were Nick Sirianni,
right?
All right, but if you were Nick Sirianni, because you just kind of explained, well, Nick kind of has a bigger leg to stand on, and you're right about that, obviously, with the record. What would you do if you were Nick? Would you look at AJ and be like, our star receiver's telling us this isn't going to work, but it keeps working, and we just played 3 playoff team potentials and beat them all. So, we're about to play the Broncos and the Giants and the Vikings and the Giants.
Well, they're definitely not saying that because it is the
I know they're
NFL,
not.
and and they all 3 of those teams have good defense, or potentially could show up and give you problems. That's probably the issue moving forward as well, because you're going to have the advantage offensively. Their defense is going to have an advantage on your offense if you continue to play the way you're playing, whereas you should be able, to wear them down from a defensive perspective, because, rookie quarterback, second-year quarterback, Carson Wentz or J.J. McCarthy. I mean, that's Vic Fangio's wheelhouse. So you should be able to wear them down from that perspective. But, some of those games might end up being ugly if Denver brings its defense next week. Like, if they play well defensively, the Eagles are going to win, but that might piss some people off that game. Same thing with Minnesota and I would say one of the Giants games. If Thibodeau and Burns and Abdul Carter get going, it may continue to look kind of shitty on offense. So hey, if I were to be giving advice to Nick Sirianni, and sometimes I try in my questions, but he doesn't want it. He doesn't need it. And I tried to say it with manufactured touches. Of course, he didn't answer the question. He never does. I said, dude, I essentially said, I didn't say dude, but I felt like saying, dude, if you give somebody a layup, he wouldn't bite. Swing pass. You threw 1 million swing passes in training camp. Will Shipley's back. Get him out there. Throw him a swing pass.
Yeah, right.
And all of a sudden, Jalen sees that. I compare it to the NBA. If your jump shot isn't falling, go get a layup, and maybe you start feeling it, and you get confidence, and it's back. I don't get the philosophy, but going back to the original, yes, I think AJ's right. If it's too possible, oftentimes things are not mutually exclusive. I think Nick Sirianni can point to the scoreboard and say, we've won 20 fucking games of 21, 18 straight when Jalen plays the full game. And McMullen saying to do this, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, right.
And AJ, by all objective measures, including the measures that this organization held dear, that's another thing. For many years, Jeffrey Lurie would verbalize, the way to win consistently in this league is develop a high efficiency passing offense. Said it for years. And then they found out, you know what? We can zig when everybody else is zagging, and they go win a Super Bowl, and now they've embraced this philosophy. But ultimately, I think Jeffrey's right. Still right. I think he was right the whole time. Not that you can't win as an outlier, because the Eagles have proven you can, but if you want to do it consistently, if your goal is to become the Patriots and everybody's goal is to be that dynasty type team, I think he's still right. I think that's the easiest way to do it. But they have taken the hard road. And again, when the block punt bounces your way and the block kick bounces your way and the drops bounce your way, it's all peaches and cream. When they don't, then you're sitting there at the end of the game and you're saying, whether you're up 2017 and they score then you're like, your jaw drops. Oh, this can happen. And maybe the Eagles need that, because they're living on the edge, man.
They are, but they keep winning, and you're right. I mean, I think you have a good logical thought process about the whole thing, per usual. John, what do you think Lurie thinks about it? I mean, obviously he has a trophy in his hard work case because of it, but he was notorious for that before this era of the Eagles, before the specifically Jalen Hurts era of the Eagles. He wanted a high flying power. I mean, he talked about Doug Peterson, that famous Tuesday meeting after they beat Green Bay in Green Bay. Why are we not passing the football more? What do you think he thinks about it? Good with the winning? I'm sure he is.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, Jeffrey's a good owner because he gets out of the way, and until this coach proves otherwise, he's getting out of the way. But in his quiet moments, yeah, I don't think he's changed his beliefs. But I think he's happy with the hardware, and I think he's the same where I am. I'm like, two things can be right at the same time. Nick Sirianni has proven with this group that this is the way to win a lot of football games. Long term, Jeffrey's probably correct. At some point, something's going to happen. Might be a Saquon injury, blah, blah, blah. Might be a Jalen. And all of a sudden, you got to play with Tanner McKee, and you got to play differently. No, nobody's going to be impacted by the threat of a off-schedule run.
Right.
From Tanner McKee.
He threw the ball 41 times when Tanner started last year. Much different offense.
So you got to play differently. And it's easier to play the way everybody else is trying to do it than it is to play the way the Eagles are trying to do it.
Yep. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. We'll talk about some other things here as well. I just wanted to start with that because obviously that's still dominating the headlines, and I do think it will continue to dominate the headlines. When will we hear from AJ? Wednesday?
He usually talks Thursdays, but he'll mix it up. He'll maybe he'll decide. Let me get this over.
Though, right?
Yeah.
So I got.
He usually talks Thursdays, but he'll mix it up. He might push it off to Friday if he wants to keep everybody.
Does he get in trouble for not talking after the game?
No, not. I mean, we have to talk. It's an NFL rule, but we don't press that as a group. He's been very open with us, especially with somebody like him. Like, we're not going to go, oh, he didn't talk, you got to fine him.
Right.
We could. We're not that big of dicks. So, if it happened a full season, yeah, you start to say, hey, look, this guy's one of the biggest stars on the team. He's got to talk to us. But he's been very open. And so if he wants a week off, like, last year, the Carolina game was frustrating. Basically all he said was passing, and, that was it. Nobody's going to push it because he's not, it's not consistent. So he didn't want to talk because he was frustrated. It's okay.
Yeah. I hate to say this, but I still do think AJ's right this year about the offense. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to be right. And to be frank with you, I hope I'm proven wrong. But I think based on what you see in the first 4 weeks, when you don't have that running game clicking like it has, when you don't have the defense who's good, but not the number one overall, I think you're going to have to switch it up a little bit in the way that you win games. I know they're 4-0 so far, so I don't really have much of a leg to stand on. But I hope they're able to win as much in the end. But at the end of the day, it's only week 4. I mean, they got to string 2 halves of football together. And I think once they do that, we're all going to be, it's going to look like a different team as it has in the first half last week. And
by the way, the numbers were 246 against Washington and 221 against Kansas City. So even when you think the NFC Championship game, even when it's perceived that, the passing game, it ain't that good. And think about the Super Bowl. How long was the dagger to Devontae? I don't know, 45, 40, 48-ish. Then you're down to 170 something, Like even when it's perceived that way, it's not that way.
46 was the dagger, 46 yards.
And so since they scaled it back, since they started this, the high point was 290 against Pittsburgh, was legitimately good, tremendous passing game. And really, that's it. 264 against Cleveland, which was an ugly game. That was the other high. Here, I'm going to run it down for everybody. 264, 114, 236, 230, 202, 221, 179, 118, 108, 290. Then Jalen got hurt against Washington. Into the playoffs, 131 against Green Bay, 128 against the Rams, 246 against Washington, where everybody thinks they're high flying all over the field, 221 against Kansas City, same thing. Yeah, I don't blame it at all for being frustrated. At all. At all. This is too risk averse.
He's a human
Too
being.
risk averse.
You know, I do think a lot of people think like that too. I mean, athletes aren't robots. I tweeted that out yesterday. I think people sometimes think they're a robot, like Madden player. You know what I mean? Just do it. Yeah, AJ's a human being, man. He's, you know, he thinks he should get the ball. So I get it, Johnny Mac. Good stuff, man. Great conversation here. We'll see. I still think that sweet spot's right around that 200-yard mark. If they can get up to there consistently, I think they become a much more.
Boy, how the mighty have fallen. We're trying to get up to 200 yards and can't do it with what's perceived as one of the greatest offenses ever in this town. That's brutal. If 200 is the litmus test.
Well, I don't want to go crazy on the big end because then that would insinuate they're trying to play. You know what I mean? I'm still projecting they're going to be playing in the league.
I'm not saying if that's all you're asking for, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying that's unbelievable. With AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, you know, I mean, it's got to be better than that. Got to be.
I have a hard time believing that Nick Sirianni, who's a wide receivers coach, doesn't understand this a little bit better.
Oh no, well, I bring him up all the time in Indiana. Believe me, he threw the ball when he had Andrew Luck. He threw the ball when he had Phillip Rivers. That's all he did. All he did. He's building the offense around what he has.